Memphis, Tennessee, 1933, is a city haunted by the ghosts of Prohibition. In its dark alleys and dusty neighborhoods, George "Machine Gun" Kelly looms as a nightmare, feared by both the police and the underworld. According to FBI records, George "Machine Gun" Kelly was a bank robber and kidnapper known as G.Men. Just hearing his name brings to mind the time when crime was rampant in the Midwest and the United States. Although this period only lasted a few years, it will forever be a major milestone in the history of American crime. Just mentioning the infamous names, one can imagine this terrifying time. It was the time of Bandit John Dillinger, the baby-faced killer Nelson Baby, the Bonnie and Clyde couple, the Barker Gang, and of course, Machine Gun Kelly. Among the most notorious criminals of that era, Machine Gun Kelly had the shortest career, was caught the earliest, but was also fortunately one of the few criminals who survived the longest. His record is full of the most notorious kidnappings in America, shocking prison breaks and bank robberies. After a kidnapping in Memphis, Machine Gun Kelly was apprehended by police and quickly prosecuted and tried in Oklahoma City. From the time of Kelly's arrest to his conviction was only 18 days. He was sentenced to life without parole at Leavenworth Federal Prison. In 1991, a book was published about Kelly, titled The Fall of Machine Gun Kelly. This book was written by the second son of this famous bandit about his father according to his own feelings. Accordingly, George Kelly Barnes was born in 1900 in Chicago. Many previous information about this robber said that Kelly was born in Tennessee in 1897 or 1895. What was special about Kelly was that he came from a middle-class family. Meanwhile, most robbers at that time came from poor, uneducated families. Only Kelly Machine Gun had a college degree. Therefore, more or less in Kelly's criminal journey, he was considered smart. Since childhood, Kelly has always disagreed with his father. When he was 2 years old, the family moved to Tennessee. During this time, he only had affection for his mother and fiercely opposed his father. Once, when he was at school age, Kelly caught his father cheating with another woman at home. Instead of telling his mother like other children, Kelly chose the best way for himself. He dropped out of school, went to the company to threaten his father, and demanded that he be given a car to go to school. Of course, his father Barnes had to accept the request of his cunning son. This partly shaped Kelly's personality later on. In addition to his achievement of controlling his father, Kelly also did many things that showed the nature of a robber when he was still a high school student. Although Tennessee had a law prohibiting the production and sale of alcohol, Machine Gun Kelly boldly traded in small quantities. The boy earned enough money to spend comfortably during his student life until his second year, when Kelly was arrested for illegal possession of alcohol and was bailed out by his father. But the turning point in Kelly's life was when her mother Elizabeth Kelly Barnes passed away. Kelly blamed her father for this, and the relationship between father and daughter became worse and worse. The conflict culminated in Kelly committing suicide by drinking mercury after being immersed in alcohol for a long time. After being rescued in time and waking up in the hospital, Kelly was severely cursed by her father. "Why don't you stop doing stupid things? If you want to die, use a gun to end your damn life," the father said. And that was also the time when Kelly Machine Gun father and son stood on two sides of the battle line. After her mother's death, Kelly's hatred for her unfaithful father grew even stronger. Their relationship became even more strained after Kelly's failed suicide attempt. After graduating from high school, Kelly attended Mississippi State University, majoring in agriculture. But after just 4 months, Kelly dropped out when she couldn't complete any of her school requirements. College wasn't her primary goal. Kelly did it because her late mother wanted her to. During a school club trip, Kelly met Geneva Ramsey. Geneva was a senior and the beloved daughter of George Ramsey, a famous businessman. Geneva had heard her father mention Kelly's name and forbade her from seeing him. Knowing that Geneva's father was against it, Kelly was still determined to pursue this beautiful and lovely girl. One evening, Kelly drove to Mississippi to meet Geneva and asked her to run away. Geneva agreed. With the help of the daughter of the Mississippi governor, Geneva's best friend, the two had a rather interesting trip before returning to apologize to the Ramsey family. George Ramsey relented and accepted his daughter's relationship with Kelly and changed his attitude towards him. He was a positive influence on Kelly's life during that time. Kelly once told his son, "If your grandfather had been like George, my life would have been completely different." George Ramsey made a name for himself in the Mississippi Valley Railroad construction and transportation business. He asked Kelly to work with him and respected his decisions. George saw in Kelly his drive to change his life. The business was going well until George died in an explosives accident. Many people thought that this incident was related to Kelly. George's death accidentally destroyed Kelly and Geneva's happiness, causing Kelly's business to face many difficulties. The Ramsey family sold many assets to help Kelly restore the business. Even his father, who was always on the front line, tried to help him, but the situation could not be changed. After consecutive failures, Kelly returned to the smuggling business. Geneva was very against this. Once, when Kelly was arrested for smuggling, Geneva borrowed $200 from her mother to bail him out. Geneva threatened to divorce him if this continued. Geneva and Kelly had a son named George Jr. The boy grew up while his father's business was struggling. Kelly showed little interest in her son and often got angry with him. George Jr. was very afraid of Kelly. Kelly seemed to have no luck with legitimate businesses and failed repeatedly. He became an alcoholic, beat and abused his wife. Geneva had a miscarriage before having her second son, due to Kelly's beatings. Kelly moved to Kansas City to find a new job and convinced Geneva and the children to follow her. Kelly worked as a cashier at a large store in Kansas and frequently shoplifted there. Geneva filed for divorce and moved back to Memphis with the children when she found out. In Kansas, Kelly opened a small shop to cover his smuggling activities and began using the name George R. Kelly. Kelly was very careful in choosing his employees and expanded his smuggling territory to Texas, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. Kelly was arrested on March 14, 1927, while transporting a contraband shipment. He spent several months in prison. The second time, Kelly was caught transporting counterfeit alcohol. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Here, Kelly met the notorious bank robbers of that time, such as Charlie Harmon, Frank Jelly Nash, Francis Jimmy Keating, and Thomas Holden. In 1930, Kelly met Catherine, a young woman who had been married 3 times and could not get drunk. Catherine had a great influence on Kelly's career later on and gave him the nickname Machine Gun. Catherine bought Kelly his first gun, taught him how to use it, and turned Kelly into the #1 marksman in the criminal world at that time. In September 1930, Kelly and Kythryn were married in Minneapolis. The couple lived in Kythryn's ex-husband's home. Bank robbery. During his 3-year sentence at Leavenworth Prison, Kelly met and became acquainted with the notorious bank robbers of the time and learned about John Dillinger, the legendary figure of bank robberies. On July 15, 1930, Kelly participated in his first bank robbery with Keating and Holden. Their target was the Wilmar, Minnesota bank. The amount of money they stole was up to $70,000. Kelly held the teller at gunpoint while the others collected the money. After the success of his first robbery, Kelly continued to participate in other bank robberies. In September 1930, Kelly participated in a bank robbery in Ottumwa, Iowa. However, the amount of money earned in this robbery was not much. In 1932, Kelly met and became acquainted with Albert L. Bates, a notorious criminal with many aliases. Bates had been convicted of multiple robberies and was considered a suspect in the murder of his accomplice after a bank robbery. Kelly and Bates worked together on many subsequent cases. Kelly's last known bank robbery was on November 30, 1932, when Kelly, Bates, and 2 others robbed the State Bank of Tupelo, Mississippi. They made off with $30,000. Kelly used a .38 caliber pistol in the robbery. The bank manager reportedly told Kelly, "You don't look like a robber." After that incident, Kelly returned to smuggling activities, no longer participating in bank robberies. The robberies Kelly carried out were so perfect in their plans that the police could not catch them. Later, Kelly said that Catherine helped him plan, and that she even disguised herself as a man to accompany Kelly on some of his missions. Kidnap. In addition to bank robberies, Kelly's criminal record is also known for his notorious kidnappings. The first kidnapping that Kelly participated in was in 1930, with his accomplice being a police officer named Bernard Phillips. Their victim was later killed by Bernard. After that, Phillips tried to persuade Kelly to participate in several other cases but failed. Kelly refused because the ransom they got from the kidnappings was not too much. Kelly was involved in a second kidnapping in early 1932. It was January 27, 1932, and Howard Wolverton, a bank clerk, was rushing home from work. As Howard got into his car, a gunman suddenly appeared. He overpowered Howard, forced him to drive out of town, and locked him in an abandoned house where his accomplices were waiting. A phone call was made to Howard's wife demanding a ransom of $50,000. The two kidnappers were Kelly and Eddie Dahl. Eddie Dahl was orphaned as a child and grew up in the slums of Chicago. He started committing crimes at a very young age. His personal record included crimes such as car theft, smuggling, bank robbery, kidnapping, etc. Kelly and Eddie held Howard captive for nearly 2 days. But when they learned that Howard's family could not come up with such a large sum of money, they released Howard and threatened to return for the money when they needed it. While in Fort Worth, Kelly and his wife, Catherine, hatched several kidnapping plans. Their first target was the son of a Fort Worth oil tycoon. Catherine attempted to invite two police officers, J. W. Swinney and Ed Weatherford, to join them in the mission. Both declined because the plan was too risky. Soon after, FBI agents learned of the kidnapping and that their target was under special protection. The Kellys were forced to abandon their initial plan. Not long after, the two came up with another plan. This time, they decided to work with Bates. At 11 p.m. on July 22, 1933, Kelly and Bates appeared in front of the mansion of Charles F. Urschel, an oil millionaire in Oklahoma City. Hello, everyone. Let's continue with part 2 of the story about Bandit George Machine Gun Kelly, who both the police and the underworld have to fear for his crimes, such as bank robbery and reckless kidnapping. The Kellys planned their next kidnapping with the cooperation of Albert Bates. Their target this time was Charles F. Urschel, an Oklahoma City oil billionaire. At 11 p.m. on July 22, 1933, Kelly and Bates appeared in front of Charles's mansion. They quickly broke inside. Charles was sitting in the living room, not paying attention to the presence of two strangers until he heard his wife scream. Charles's wife, Bernice, came down the stairs, screaming in fear when she saw Kelly holding a gun and pointing it at her. Kelly held Bernice at gunpoint, while Bates escorted Charles to the car. The two quickly left the mansion with the hostage and sped off into the night in Bates' car. Bernice is Charles's second wife. They were recently married. Bernice was previously married to an oil tycoon named Thomas B. Slick and had a daughter, Elizabeth. After Thomas died, Bernice remarried Charles. Elizabeth now lives with her at Charles's mansion. Some theories suggest that little Elizabeth was the kidnapper's target. After Bernice described the two strangers who had held her that day, Elizabeth said she had seen them several times before. They often appeared near the villa. Less than an hour after Charles was taken away, police and press were on the scene. By early the next morning, nearly every newspaper in the country had reported the kidnapping. Bates drove Charles to Catherine's stepfather, Shannon's ranch in Texas. Charles was blindfolded and locked in the car until the next evening. Charles was taken inside the house, tied to an iron bed, and his ears were plugged with cotton. A camera placed above recorded the entire scene. The next day, at breakfast, everyone at the Shannon farm read the newspaper article about the kidnapping. Charles was taken to a small house owned by Oletha and Armin, Shannon's son. Meanwhile, Catherine was trying to arrange an alibi, inviting a few friends over to her house under the pretense of having just taken a trip to St. Louis. But Catherine's actions did not go unnoticed by a detective friend. When he discovered red dirt on her tires and a newspaper published in Oklahoma the day before, he notified the police. Catherine was called in for questioning. However, the police did not find any clues related to the kidnapping. Charles was held captive for 9 days, and because of the earplugs, it was difficult for Charles to hear other sounds than the planes and the water pumps nearby. Charles tried to leave his fingerprints wherever he could, hoping that this would come in handy if he ever got the chance to escape. On the 25th, Kelly asked Charles to contact his relatives to ask them to prepare the ransom. Charles wrote 2 notes at Kelly's direction, one to his wife Bernice and one to his friend John Catlett in Tulsa. The ransom demand was $200,000. A pretty good plan was laid out for Kelly and Bates to get the money from Charles's relatives. The police were never informed of the kidnappers' demands or how the money would be delivered. True to Kelly and Bates' promise, Charles was released after they received the money. They left Charles on the highway. Kelly gave Charles $10 and told him to go to the nearest gas station to catch a taxi. At 9 p.m. on July 31st, Charles was home. The next morning, a large-scale investigation was carried out. Kelly, Catherine, and Bates moved to Minneapolis when they received the ransom. They decided to split up there. Kelly and Catherine left town on August 5th. That same day, the FBI received information that some bills matching the serial numbers on the money the Charles family gave to the kidnappers had been found in Minneapolis. With the information Charles provided on August 10th, the FBI was able to identify Shannon's farm. Charles remembered the time he heard the plane, the sound of the water pump, and the distinct taste of the water. On August 12th, FBI forces surrounded the Shannon farm and arrested family members. That same day, Albert Bates was arrested at a Denver hotel. Police found $600 in ransom money on Bates when he was arrested. In addition to the kidnapping, he was also charged with several recent bank robberies in the area. For witnesses testified that Bates was one of the gunmen in the January 1920 robbery of the National Bank in Louisville, Colorado. Investigators were surprised by Bates's quick confession. They wondered if he had committed any more daring robberies. Bates was held in federal prison pending investigation. When Kelly and Catherine left Minneapolis on August 5th, they thought the police would not be able to determine their involvement in the kidnapping. But when they learned that the Shannons and Bates had been arrested, they both panicked. In mid-August 1933, just 2 weeks after billionaire Charles was released, Oklahoma authorities and police prepared the necessary procedures to prosecute the Shannon family, Bates, and related people. On August 18th, Catherine sent a letter to Joseph Barry Keenan, the Oklahoma prosecutor. In the letter, Catherine threatened that the billionaire Charles's family and all his friends would be killed if anything happened to her family. And surprisingly, Catherine was willing to trade Kelly for the safety of her family. "A tragedy will happen in Oklahoma in a few days if my demands are not met," Catherine stressed. During this time, Catherine helped Luther Arnold, a prisoner who had just escaped from prison. Catherine drove the Arnold family to Cleburne, Texas, where they hid and provided them with some much-needed money for the time being. Catherine trusted Arnold and wanted him to help her. Catherine claimed to be Kelly's wife, then gave Arnold $50 and instructed him to go to Fort Worth and contact her lawyer. Catherine also found out why Joseph B. Keenan did not accept the offer to release her mother and Shannon's family in exchange for Kelly. Catherine also asked Arnold to let his daughter go with her. She wanted Arnold's daughter Geraldine to go with her and Kelly to avoid police attention. Kelly and Catherine fled to Chicago. Along the way, they stopped in Texas to bury $73,000 in ransom money at the ranch of Catherine's uncle, Cass Coleman. On September 19th, billionaire Charles received a threatening letter signed by Kelly. In the letter, Kelly threatened to kill Charles's entire family if the Shannons were convicted. Kelly called himself Charles's biggest enemy. Kelly and Catherine were not welcome in Chicago, although they had many friends there. On September 21st, Kelly and Catherine left for Memphis with their daughter Arnold. At that time, there was a robbery at the Federal Reserve Bank in Chicago, and the police suspected that Kelly and Vern Miller, one of the rising robbers in Chicago, had carried out the robbery. Kelly and Catherine went to Memphis, hiding at the home of Kelly's friend John Titchener, where they celebrated their 3rd wedding anniversary. Kelly tries to contact his first wife's brother, Langford Ramsey, who is now a lawyer, to ask for help. Kelly wants Langford to go to Texas to retrieve the money he buried there. His daughter Ronald will go with Langford to show him Cass Coleman's ranch. But as soon as Langford arrived in Texas, Coleman informed him that the FBI was keeping a close eye on the area, and that it would be risky for such a large sum of money to be dug up. Langford informed Kelly of this and contacted Ronald to pick up Geraldine. The police approached Geraldine as soon as she boarded the train, as arranged by Langford and her father. She recounted her entire trip to the FBI agents, leaving out every detail. Using information provided by 12-year-old Geraldine Arnold, Memphis police and the FBI arrested Kelly at the Titchener home early on September 26, 1933. Some newspapers said that Sergeant William Rainey of the Memphis Police Department knocked on Titchener's door. Kelly opened the door with a .45 caliber gun. With a large body, Rainey overpowered Kelly, pushing the gun close to his stomach. Some other information said that Memphis police suddenly raided Titchener's house early in the morning. Kelly and Catherine were sleeping in the room. That night, the two had drunk too much alcohol. Next to Kelly was still placed a .45 caliber gun. After their arrest, Kelly and Catherine were arraigned the same day at the Shelby County Jail, both pleading not guilty to kidnapping billionaire Charles. Kelly appeared defiant to investigators and would fight to the end if he was extradited to Oklahoma. While in custody, Kelly confidently said he would quickly escape. Catherine, on the other hand, agreed to be extradited if the police wanted. According to Catherine's testimony, her family was controlled by Kelly. He forced the whole family to help him kidnap Charles. The Shannons also testified that they feared Kelly and had to do as he said. Catherine said she wanted to turn herself in to testify for her family at her previous trial, but Kelly threatened to kill her if she left him. Being arrested at Titchener's house was a lucky thing for her. She would be free of Kelly. Kelly was also charged with participating in the Kansas City massacre, as well as the killing of a Chicago police officer. A day after his arrest, Kelly changed his story, admitting to participating in Charles's kidnapping but not the Kansas massacre or the Chicago murders. On September 27th, federal police went to Cass Coleman's farm and found $73,250 buried there by Kelly. Coleman and Langford Ramsey were arrested. On September 30th, 7 defendants were convicted of participating in the kidnapping of billionaire Charles. The verdict will be announced a week later. On October 1st, Kelly and his associates were flown to Oklahoma and transferred to the county jail, accompanied by 10 police cars. The trial is scheduled to begin on October 9th. Kelly appeared in court looking tired and uncomfortable after many days of detention. On the contrary, Catherine paid quite a lot of attention to her appearance, dressed fashionably, and appeared to enjoy being in front of the reporters' cameras. On the first day of the trial, many witnesses were present: billionaire Charles and his wife, John Catlett, Charles's friend, the recipient of Charles's letter. The prosecutor presented a lot of evidence against Kelly. Catherine cried as her grandmother, T.C. Coleman, appeared in court in a wheelchair, where she was to testify against Catherine. Arnold's wife said Catherine kidnapped her daughter, 12-year-old Geraldine. An expert in handwriting was also called to the trial to confirm that the handwriting on the letter to Sir Joseph Barry Keenan was Catherine's. On October 11th, Catherine denied participating in Charles's kidnapping, wrote letters to Charles, and was present at Cass Coleman's farm when the ransom money was buried. The court found that Catherine had been dishonest in her testimony. Kelly sat below, listening attentively to every testimony. He did not hope to be acquitted. It took the jury just over an hour to reach its verdict on October 12th. Kelly and Catherine were found guilty of masterminding Charles's kidnapping and were sentenced to life in prison at Leavenworth. Catherine was furious at the verdict. Kelly, on the other hand, calmly declared that she would be released from Leavenworth prison before Christmas. George Kelly remained in Leavenworth until October 1034, when he was transferred to Alcatraz prison along with Albert Bates and Harvey Bailey. Alcatraz prison was quite famous, housing the most dangerous criminals of the time. During his time in Alcatraz prison, Kelly sent many letters to billionaire Charles, earnestly asking for forgiveness and asking Charles to intervene in his sentence, but Charles was too busy to pay attention to that. Bates, an accomplice in Charles's kidnapping, died in Alcatraz prison on July 4, 1948. As for Catherine, after many years of imprisonment, she was released in June 1958 and lived a rather private life afterwards. In 1951, Kelly was transferred back to Leavenworth prison and died of a heart attack on July 17, 1954 at the age of 54. George Machine Gun Kelly is ranked 95,638th in the world and 50th in the list of famous criminals.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. And as always, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next one.